A lot of people don't really have any idea what a two-stage trigger is and how it operates. So in this clip, with the help of this skeletonized trigger guard, I'm going to try to explain that to you and give you a better understanding of how the KIDD trigger works and how it offers an advantage over a single stage trigger. You'll see the hammer. You got your hammer, your main spring retainer, your mainspring, your hammer strut. There's your trigger body, trigger obviously, a sear, trigger bar, and then you have your first and second stage plungers, which control the weight of the first stage and the weight of the second stage. And of course, that's where the whole confusion comes in. People say, well, what does that mean? What is that? What is this thing going to do? Well, as you see, when the hammer is cocked, the trigger body is connected to the sear with a trigger bar or transfer bar. It's also, you could be called a disconnector because it's got to disconnect from the sear as it fires. But the first thing you'd notice is that on a two-stage trigger, the trigger has a first stage movement, which in a single stage trigger you'll have some movement, but you shouldn't. You know, obviously a single stage trigger should just break. But what you got here, what creates that first stage movement is, as you're seeing, the movement of the sear. Now, the hammer and sear on a two-stage trigger have about 20 thousandths engagement. That is what makes the trigger extremely reliable. Every time the hammer cycles, the trigger cycles, the sear catches the hammer on that 20 thousandths of an inch. It will never double. It will never go full auto. The hammer will never follow. It's extremely reliable. As the trigger is pulled backwards, you see it floats. It's very smooth. It's very fluid. You'll pull it back, and we've painted the second stage plunger red to try to make it a little easier to see. There's not a lot of room in there. But as the trigger is pulled rearward, that movement is interrupted by this second stage plunger poking out here. That interruption is adjusted. It can be screwed fore and aft, and it's adjusted so that when that sear is pivoted backwards, when it makes contact with this second stage plunger, now the sear and hammer are engaged by only 1/1000th of an inch. There's nothing holding that but a fourth of a sheet of paper. So at this point, any movement, all I have to do is build pressure. I come back here, and now it's like a single stage trigger. You just have that take up. You pull it, there you are. Now you're at basically a single stage trigger. Any movement beyond this point will fire that hammer. And it takes that 1/1000th of an inch to break it. Now that weight is adjustable. This trigger is set at 1 pound. So I'm running 8 ounces on this first stage, which the first stage weight is the weight that it takes to pivot this sear and pivot the trigger assembly. That's 8 ounces, what we call the first stage. The second stage is also set at 8 ounces. And normally you're going to want to keep these distributed at a 50-50 to a 60-40 minimum distribution. When you start going as much as 75%, let's say you're putting 3/4 of a pound on the first stage and 1/4 pound on the second stage, it's very tricky. So you just stick to 50-50. It gives you a very good trigger pull, very precise, and again, very repeatable and easy to shoot. When you're in the 8 ounce second stage, which, you know, the full 1 pound, we got 8 on the first, 8 on the second, that's 1 pound. It's a 1 pound trigger. It's very easy. You pull back. It's very easy to detect. The interruption's very positive. An easy trigger to shoot from 1 pound to 2.5 pounds. When you start getting below the pound, you know, all the way down to 6 ounces, it's still very repeatable. Still works exactly the same way, but you do have to be a little more sensitive. You know, it's unless you've got a very experienced trigger finger, you'll have to, you know, kind of creep up on it, and then you'll feel the interruption, because it's only 3 ounces. You know, it takes 3 ounces is not a lot of pressure. So you can shoot it as light, like I say, as light as 6 ounces easily. Just got to think a little bit more about it. What you see is, of course, you take up that slack, you break the shot, the hammer comes forward. Now as the hammer comes back, you'll see that it's going to disconnect the trigger bar. Let the sear come forward, and again, it catches that the hammer with that 20 thousandths engagement. Then as you let the trigger go forward, you'll see the notch that was disconnected here is going to come up and reconnect you to the sear. Now you're ready to go again. So that's how a 2-stage trigger works.